Okay, so Enable, you recently published a report, MSP Horizons Report, I think, in working with Canalys. It'd just be good, I suppose, to understand a little bit the sort of thinking behind it. Is it something you do regularly? Is it the first time you've done it? And what was the sort of, the objectives of researching the report?
Yeah, sure. And by the way, thanks for having me. And we love talking to our partners about the Enable story and also to the media about the Enable story. So thanks for having us. So look, there's a good amount, whether it be in the channel or in the MSP market, there's always a good amount of research done on yesterday or in the past. And what we really wanted to do is to take a look and survey MSPs from across the globe. We have hundreds of MSPs that we've surveyed along with Canalys, and really ask them about the horizons ahead. And so the report is intentionally named 2024 MSP Horizons Report. And really, Philip, the idea is to see MSPs, where do they see their business, the opportunity, and some of the challenges, whether it be in the immediate horizon, i.e., today in 2024, that medium horizon might be maybe, 18, 24 months away. And then in the long term, where do they see the big macro trends? And so it's a really cool little MSP industry that we have, and where we can really leverage the collective intelligence of all the MSPs so that someone, whether they be in the UK or in South Africa or in the West Coast of the United States, or is from a more of a nation that's just getting their managed services practice, they can draw on some of the knowledge from across this base and hopefully put it to use and make their business a better business. So it's intended really to help our partners leverage and think about as more of a piece of fodder for their own teams. Hey, what can we be doing to help grow our business to be one of the best, managed service providers for our customers and for our own business as they look ahead. So that's really the intent of the design, is really for MSPs to leverage the data and collect that data that we're able to house as having 25,000 MSPs with Enable, to share that collective intelligence and put the report out there.
Okay, and in terms of what it uncovered, I mean, there's a fair amount of detail, but if we can perhaps start with I think what might call the headline finding, which is that should we say, I don't know, MSPs haven't been around for too long, but it seems that already the traditional, or if we shall we say MSP 1.0, is being replaced by more of an ecosystem model. So I don't know if you can just talk us through a little bit of that transition.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, there's a bunch of positives that are popping out. For me, the one big statement is that almost all, I think it was like 97% of managed service providers across the globe are expecting to grow. Like, start with that, right? So, and I think 2/3 are expecting to grow by double digits. So the demand for services for the MSPs is strong now, or as strong as ever. And I love that you use that 1.0 bit. I also call this, what we're in now, is more this 2.0 wave of needs for the managed service providers. And those needs range from helping small, medium enterprise move to the cloud, helping them be secure or deal with compliance issues, and even just navigating this hybrid world, right? By evidence of this video conference where I'm working from home today. It's snowing out here in Boston. And so it's a remote world. It's a hybrid world. We're using Macs, we're using Office Windows devices. And that hybrid nature is also throwing a lot of change and challenge. So all of that creates a tremendous amount of growth opportunity for the MSPs and for small, medium enterprises. And the interesting thing, Philip, is what you were alluding to, is how MSPs are tackling that opportunity. What we're seeing MSPs now looking at is more of a sharing model, where they're saying, hey, look, and that comes in two different flavors. Flavor one is managed service providers are now walking into internal IT departments of Fortune 1000 companies, mid-market companies. And instead, historically, the persona that an MSP was targeting was maybe a business owner or someone in the C-suite or CFO. Now the persona that an MSP is looking to contact or be as their customer might be a VP of IT, a CIO, an IT director. And MSPs are now going into companies using a co-managed model, telling that VP of IT or that CIO, hey, let me help and augment your staff. So that's one bit on this partnership with a shared augmentation. The other bit is a lot of MSPs, and I say the majority of MSPs from a logo point of view, can't do it all themselves, right? They can't handle all of the different security bits, the regulatory bits that are thrown at them. So if you're a 5-person or a 10-person MSP and you need help with the cyber threats of today, MSPs are talking to MSSPs or they're talking to MDR shops to help them with their security angle. Frankly, that's why we're bringing Enable MDR. We brought it to market in January in the US. We'll be bringing it in the UK and the rest of Europe later on in Q1 and also in Asia Pac. So why? Because MSPs need help dealing with all the cybersecurity issues of today. So what we're seeing is MSPs are looking across different ways to either partner with their customers and have different personas that they're targeting, or look at different services through automation and technology that they can now service and make sure that their customers are more secure, better today. And it's a great growth avenue or pathway to growth for these MSPs, as well as making sure that their customers are safe and secure. So it's an evolving bit in the MSP market. I don't think it's new in 2024, Philip, but what I'm seeing is I'd say it's become more mainstream in 2024, as it should be, to help these MSPs get that double-digit growth that they see in front of them.
Okay, one other thing that caught my eye was increasing attention on the sales and marketing and the customer experience in terms of MSPs looking to upgrade. I mean, was the suggestion that they were falling short of what they should be, or they were already doing a good job and they just want to sort of get to the next level? Just thoughts about that.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about AI, we talk about moving to the cloud and cybersecurity, and that how all of these new technologies present different problems, different challenges for both the managed service providers, but also the customers that they service. But as I've been now in this industry for 11 years, Philip, and what I tell people are a lot of the verbs have stayed the same: monitoring and management and security, where the assets are, if they're in the cloud or in a wiring closet. Yeah, those have changed. But another thing that has very much stayed tried and true is when we ask MSPs 10 years ago or now, what are some of their challenges? New customer acquisition continues to be top of mind. And when I think about that, I bifurcate that answer into in half. And for the smaller MSP, the upstart MSP, a lot of the reason why they struggle with new customer acquisition is what I refer to as the F word, and not that F word, but more focus. And where a lot of small organizations and for managed service providers, they don't have a dedicated or a focused salesperson. Very few have a dedicated marketing person. And it's usually the technician or the business owner doing sales and marketing on the side. And without that focus, the MSPs, for the most part, are not necessarily driving that new customer acquisition in the right way. So my advice to those MSPs is find time, dedicate time, and focus. Sometimes you might need to spend $1 or spend £1 to gain £1, and sometimes that might be in the form of actually hiring a sales force or maybe leveraging an agency to get your word out there. On the larger part, what I see is a lot of MSPs have made the determination that they want to standardize on a certain customer, and so they've chosen to focus. They've chosen to use that F word. But now they're trying to find the right type of customer. There's plenty of opportunity for the MSPs, but a good MSP, a disciplined business owner, knows that not all customers will fit their profile. And sometimes you're better off saying no to a potential new prospect if they don't fit your profile of what tech stack that you want to do, because we all know a customer that is not profitable can actually drag you down. And so for the larger MSPs, my advice is make sure you're standardizing, be selective, pick a vertical or pick a geo that you can really glean into. And hopefully that will help overturn some of those new customer acquisition problems. But it's funny, the technology, as much as it changes, some of those business problems remain the same. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. New customer acquisition continues to be a challenge point for the managed service providers.
Okay, and you've mentioned some of the technologies there, so perhaps we can drill down into those in a bit more detail. And sort of front and center, everyone's talking about it, AI. So there's an impact there, and I'm just interested for MSPs. I guess there's two opportunities, both to leverage it within their business to potentially get smarter, and maybe, as you said, with sales and marketing, customer experience, there's ways they can improve, but also clearly their customers are frantically trying to understand the AI opportunities. So there are services that MSPs can offer. So, if you can just, again, shed a bit of light as to what your MSPs are telling you as to, whether
Sure. And
confident or confused or what's going on.
no, 100%. And look, it's as a global topic, I think we're only just beginning to scratch the surface. And really just have to begin to discuss the art of the possible as it relates to AI. And so the MSPs, well, look, they're technologists, and small medium enterprises are looking there. There might be a CPA or financial advisor, a chiropractor, a regional hospital. They're not necessarily technologists, and they're looking to MSPs to help them guide them. And what I'll tell you is what's core to the managed service provider industry is automation, right? And so what AI is really just that next evolution. Back in this day, we talked about writing scripts and having PowerShell scripts for our technicians so they can onboard or offboard or run a policy in a more efficient manner. And then we started learning into more AI as it relates to having a bunch of data guide you as to what you should do, predictive analytics. And with cognitive AI, and that's the next wave of bits, where that's heading is now an MSP will be able to use natural language and ask for something that's not necessarily been from a machine learning model, so that they can, again, drive their bits. What I tell MSPs is think about it maybe from about 4 different dimensions, actually. And I know this is a lot, but number one, for the larger MSPs that are developing IP themselves, they can use tools for their development teams to more efficiently build IP. Here at Enable, I won't name drop, but we're using some AI tools in our development effort to help have our developers become more efficient. We're finding them be double-digit more efficient, but it's more secure because you're writing language that or code that's a little bit more secure. So larger MSPs can do that. Number two, MSPs can leverage their own processes, right? So they can use RPA, robotic process automation, and leverage a good amount of that so that their technicians can be more efficient. And we have a lot of tools here at Enable, as an example. We've integrated ChatGPT within Central. So an MSP technician can use natural language and help better write PowerShell or scripting policies so that they can drive their bits. The third one you actually touched on it is sales and marketing. MSPs can use some basic publicly available scripting that's out there to better formulate scripts. And then the last bit, and this is just the beginnings, how can they help their customers, right? And what I suggest to MSPs is ask their customers, what are the processes that have a lot of humans in the loop, maybe that might be leveraging data, that you can begin to automate the tasks. If an MSP can walk into their small medium enterprise and give them 3, 4, 5 different ways that can drive efficiency, you've done a couple of things. One, you've shown your value to your customer. You're helping them with their bottom line. They're helping with some of the mundane tasks, and I promise you'll have a happy customer. So it's at the early bits. The one thing I want to warn MSPs to think about is to make sure they know where their data is going, and they should not be dumping sensitive information into some of these models because you're not 100% sure. So make sure you know who the owner is of the AI tool. Make sure you understand where that data is going, because right now I'd say that's not necessarily regulated. I think the world will get there, but they need to be mindful of where they're putting in their data, whether it be their own data or their customers' data. And so there's many tools, many use cases. Here at Enable, we're trying to help them with some of that, with the automation and some of the tools and that integration of some of these large language models like ChatGPT. But honestly, Philip, we're in the early phases here, and MSP should think about it. This is a cool part of the Horizons report. This is not maybe Horizon 1, but definitely Horizon 2 and Horizon 3. And as management teams from MSPs sit down, they should begin to think about how are we going to leverage AI on all 4 of those dimensions. And they should feel free to reach out to me or reach out to the Enable team or reach out to others in the industry that can help them along those 4 different dimensions.
Okay, so if AI is yes, it's here, but more sort of into the future in terms of really leveraging it. I guess everyone would acknowledge cybersecurity is the number one still, shall we say, issue, challenge, opportunity for MSPs. And just, what would the MSPs say? I mean, get frustrated because it's so complex and it's so constantly changing, or is that good for new tools, new
So
opportunities? Just
yeah, so look, it's all of the above, right? And since I'd say 2016 and maybe even before, we know the bad guys have been targeting small, medium enterprise because that's the soft underbelly. If the threat actors want access to your credit card information or your personal information, they have better chances attacking maybe a small vendor that you use as opposed to like your bank. And we know that. And small, medium enterprises have begun to really lean in there. And so what the two major things that are happening there, Philip. Number one is whether it be government agencies or industry agencies are dropping down regulatory or compliance frameworks that small, medium enterprises need to comply with. That's changed security. Security used to be more of a land of the gray. Hey, what is my risk profile compared to your risk profile? And some people might say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to invest in security. I'll pay the ransomware attack if I get popped. They're never going to find me, or I'm a small shop and I'll never get popped. We know that not to be true. But what compliance has done is it doesn't matter what your risk profile is. It's moved from a world of gray and hey, I might want to, I'll buy the greatest endpoint protection bit. I'll spend what it takes for EDR. I'll leverage an MDR shop. Now what it's done is from a compliance point of view, it's a one or a zero. It's no longer a gray. You're either compliant or you're not. And so what MSPs need to do is they need to make sure that they're compliant if they're servicing those industries. But now they can walk into their customers and to their small medium business owner or to that VP of IT and say, hey, what verticals are you serving? What markets are you serving? What geographies are you servicing? Here are the compliance needs. This is the checklist that you must do if you want to play in that. And what it's pivoted the world to for the MSP, it's no longer a sell, Philip. It's now a tell. They're now walking in saying, look, you need to have a cloud-based backup offering. You need to make sure that you have vulnerability management. You need to be patching. You need to have this cloud-based backup. And so it's made the conversation in some ways easier for the MSPs because it's not them preaching to their customers. It's now them explaining to their customers, you want to be selling into this vertical. This is what the compliance or the regulatory bodies are saying. So it's made, from that point of view, it's made it easier. Okay, that's the good news. The bad news is on the flip side, the MSPs, some of that technical know-how might be beyond their scope of comfort, right? And so that's where that's augment word, what we were talking about earlier, where MSPs should be using a service to partner with somebody to help them do that. Look, a lot of MSPs do not have the financial means or the technical know-how or maybe the labor market to go build a SOC. To build a security operations center is going to cost millions and millions of dollars or sterling or whatever local currency that you're in. And frankly, it might even be just out of their purview or core competency. So my advice to those MSPs, you need to keep your customers protected. You need to keep yourself protected. Augment. Look at a service. Talk to us. We have that enable, MDR offering that helps MSPs not only just detect, but also respond to what potentially the threat actors are doing. And so it's a scary world if you choose to go at it your own. And my advice to the MSPs is get read up, get educated, look on what you want to do yourself and what your teams want to do, and then look to where you can augment, help your customers be safe, help your customers comply with the regulatory bodies, and be that trusted security advisor to your customers. And what you'll see in your business as an MSP owner, your gross retention numbers will go up. Your retention of your customers will go up. And just as importantly, your average price per your customer can also go up because now you can charge for all these security services. You can charge for these compliance bits. And what you'll have is a healthier recurring revenue stream as an MSP, better retention, better customer satisfaction, and safer customers. So it's really a win-win if they really lean into it. The MSPs that choose to ignore it, frankly, I worry that they'll be out of business because their customers will have a breach. They will be attacked. And for the vast majority of MSPs, I think they're recognizing that security is not an additional service. It's really the center of their stack. That's how MSPs are differentiating themselves today. It's not making sure that your Wi-Fi is up or that your printer is working. It's really walking into a customer saying, hey, I'm going to keep you secure. I'm going to make sure that you're compliant. I'm going to make sure that your users and your customers' data and your data is protected.
And on a related note, I think the report had something to say about cyber insurance. I mean, I know it's been around for a while, but it's notoriously difficult, if you like, to pin down because to get it, in order to get it, you've got to jump through, as you were alluding to there, various hoops, etc. And then who provides it? Do the MSPs want to provide it? Does the insurance industry? So just what did the report? But it seems to be becoming more prominent, shall we say? So just thoughts as to where
So
it's
yeah,
headed.
so I'd say this, right? There's many different instruments and tools that MSPs need to consider. And the first bit is making sure that they have a layered security approach and making sure that they follow some type of framework like a NIST framework and making sure they have the right tools for themselves first. And then number two for their customers. And then there are instruments, I'll call them, whether it be cyber insurance or warranties also. There's cyber warranties as well. And what I'll suggest to the MSPs is make sure they pay special attention to the fine print, because in a lot of those policies, whether it's for themselves as the MSP or for one of their customers to actually be able to be truly protected, it's a two-way street, right? Those underwriters put right in the terms and conditions that you need to have certain levels of security services in place. You might need to have MFA. You might need to have EDR. And so my advice to the MSPs are absolutely take a look at all the different services that are out there, but pay attention to the fine print, making sure that you're in compliance. Because if something were to happen, because we know nothing is impenetrable, we know there's no magic pill that makes us all safe, or else we'd be all selling it. And so if something were to happen, make sure that you've done everything you can to comply with, whether it be a compliance or regulatory board or that cyber insurance that you're underwriting. It's spelled out right for you in the terms and conditions. And I do think it's a nice, what I'll call belt and suspenders approach for MSPs, right? It's also a service that they can provide to their small medium enterprise, so that the small medium enterprise can also subscribe or actually pay for their own cyber insurance. So if you're an MSP that's helping a small medium business navigate that, again, pull out those terms and conditions. As just we were talking about compliance and regulatory bodies, the terms and conditions on your cyber insurance policy is a very similar blueprint. Make sure that you, as the MSP, your customer, you should be asking your customer, are you subscribing to a cyber insurance policy or not? If you are, make sure you have that policy, walk that customer through all the bits to make sure that it's a valid report, that if something bad were to happen, they would be able to leverage that policy. Because if they're not in compliance, there's a good likelihood that that insurance company will say, hey, you didn't comply. You didn't do what you needed to do to keep yourself safe. I'm not going to protect you.
And moving on to another topic, which has again been around for a fair while, but still, perhaps I don't know, is it surprising or not? But the cloud, one kind of assumes that everyone's gone to the cloud if they want to, but that's not. I know that's not the case. And then there's also a bit of pushback. They've been to the cloud and think maybe we'll come back on prem. So we've ended up with a bit of a hybrid world. So again, from an MSP point of view, there's still cloud opportunities there, but also to understand, rather than shoehorn a customer into pure cloud, to understand that some on-prem
You
applications are
know,
good. So yeah, just
yeah. So look, I think it depends, right? And so there are elements. This is just one person's opinion, but there are elements that an MSP can say, look, we are going to standardize. So I see a lot of MSPs standing to M365 as an example. They're saying, hey, I'm not going to have an Exchange server in a closet. Period. Full stop. I'm not going to do it. And I think for services like that, they're frankly ubiquitous. I think that's an okay posture for an MSP. MSPs can say, hey, look, if you want me to be your managed service provider, I'm taking your email as an example and moving it to the cloud. I'm bringing your collaboration tools with Microsoft to the cloud. And I think that's a fine position. But there are other, whether they be client applications that might be vertical focused or some other uses for servers, that there's still going to be customers that have the server in their wiring closets. And so the long and short of it is, Philip, hybrid is going to be here with us for a long, long time, right? And actually, in some ways, it will always be somewhat of a hybrid world, right? We have these physical devices that we're using right now. And so the MSP's landscape or their ecosystem will continue to be hybrid. I think what they can do is push a lot of their customers on their base collaboration tools to things that are more, that potentially could be safer or are well vetted, and move them to the cloud. And we're not seeing much pushback there. So M365, I'd say, is widely adopted. Most MSPs have either a good majority or almost all of their base in M365. We're seeing Azure come up, but that's a little bit further behind. We're seeing more SaaS applications, but we're still seeing a good amount of applications on servers. People are now using virtual machines, right? So that's a nice little hybrid approach. So my advice to the MSP, embrace the hybrid world. And there's multiple dimensions of hybrid, right? It's also the workplace. We know that a lot of small, medium enterprises are working from home and working in the office. We all know that we're using these things, right? These mobile devices. We also know there's different operating systems. There's Apple operating systems, Linux, and there's Windows, right? And so what we aspire to do is give MSPs the ability to monitor, manage, and secure all this crazy hybrid that's out there. I call it hybrid cubed. And the MSPs really need to embrace that. What they can do is choose to where they want to standardize on certain things, and they can do a lot, whether it's their backup offering, their mail security offering, their M365 offering. So standardize on some of that stuff, but no, some of your customers may have needs that are hybrid in nature, and you'll need to service those needs in some capacity.
Okay, and I think the report also highlights something of an opportunity around emerging unified monitoring and management. I know RMM's been around, quite established, so I don't know if UMM is replacing RMM or it's complementary to. Just say thoughts as to that space.
Yeah, so unified endpoint management is what the rest of the world calls RMM, really, right? And so what I see really is just more of a recognition in the MSP community that it's that hybrid nature world that we're talking about. And the irony here is more and more bits move to the cloud. It's really about making sure that your endpoint and your customers' endpoints are protected. Patching is a huge piece. Being able to take control of a device is still important, whether it be in a session or behind the scenes. And so the fundamental base tenets, or the verbs that MSPs have been doing for years in what we call RMM, and unified endpoint management, it's effectively the same. It's effectively the same bits. I think what it's more of a nod to is the fact that it is hybrid. So whether it be an Apple device, a Linux device, all these other bits, it needs to get pulled into one bit. But the center of the workforce's universe is their endpoint. They're accessing SaaS applications and their data in the cloud via their endpoint. And if you don't have an efficient way to manage your workforce or your customers' endpoints, again, with patching, with vulnerability management, and the like, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. And so really what I just think it's more of a nod to the fact that the needs between a managed service provider and an internal IT department, they're very much similar and they're a blended need. And so I think what we're seeing more is just more of an evolution in language than necessarily a major overhaul. It's effectively it's more of an evolution in language is what I would say.
In terms of other sort of customer-driven developments, I'm wondering, the report I think referenced legislation drivers possibly, and I mean, if AI is a big thing, sustainability is as well. So I'm wondering if end customers are pushing back to MSPs around that kind of thing as well. So any thoughts on those two topics?
I think where end customers are pushing MSPs is more to help them with around the compliance and regulatory bodies for themselves, for their own industry, right? And I think that's the big push. I'm not seeing much as far as small, medium enterprise. Look, at the end of the day, why do MSPs exist? MSPs exist to give small, medium enterprise peace of mind, period, full stop. That's the sole purpose of the managed service provider. And the small, medium enterprise trusts the MSP to help them with their technology security stack and their collaboration tools security stack. So the small, medium enterprise are not necessarily looking to see what agent or what software is really underneath the hood. They're trusting the managed service provider to do that. And so I think really the charge from the MSPs, from the small, medium enterprises, hey, help me become compliant. Help me with my data lake. Oh my gosh, I have all this data. I have it in different SaaS applications. I have it on-prem. I have it in the cloud at a hyperscaler. Mr. MSP, Ms. MSP, help me collect all that data. Help me with some business intelligence. That's, I think, what's the more of the evolution, which again, if you think about it from a tech stack point of view, again, the Wi-Fi and the printer and the blue screen of death that we used to experience, those are far and few in between. That's table stakes. Now the best MSPs, that upper quartile, that upper decile of the MSP, they're helping their customers with their business needs, the data needs, business intelligence needs, compliance bits, helping their customers win in their market. And which is cool, right? That means the value prop for our global industry, the economy, the channel is going up and to the right because that demand is going up. We're not just box resellers. We're not just flipping a piece of hardware anymore. They're now sitting down with their business owners, helping them plot their plan, helping them with their strategy to win in their vertical and win in their market.
And if it's possible, and I expect it might not be, but I'm going to ask anyway, we've covered a lot of ground. If you had one or two bits of advice to give to MSPs at the current time, bearing in mind a lot of the issues we've discussed, I mean, are there one or two bits of common advice that they could all do well to consider, to understand, or does it so much vary between, type of business where you want to focus? Just
No, look, I actually think sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
no,
but look, regardless of your size, regardless of your vertical, regardless of where you are in your journey, I tell MSPs to take a look at their business in a triangle. And these verbs that have been tried and true for over a decade, 20 years now, and understand what your strategy is based on that triangle. And so there's three legs of a triangle. So number one is what is your position and what are you choosing to standardize on? You need to standardize on a tech stack. Unfortunately, we see some MSPs that are managing 4, 5, 6, 8, 12 different backup solutions. You've not standardized. They have a bunch of different policies, not standardized. If you do not standardize, then you can't do the second leg, which is automate. By definition, you can gain more efficiencies through automation if you standardize. So standardize on your tech stack, standardize on your policy, standardize on your go-to-market, then use that second leg. Think about where in your business practice can you automate. That can be some go-to-market. That can be some of the best second bits on the technology front. And then the third leg is really that augment. Where in my business am I going to augment? Maybe it'll be my go-to-market motion, but it also just might be leveraging an outside shop to augment. I might be in south of England, but I have a customer who has a global office or a satellite office in South Africa. How am I going to augment and handle that type of customer? So look at that triangle and decide where you want to lean in, because there's opportunity for each MSP to improve their bottom line and their top line. But you need to write it down. You need to say, hey, what are my goals in 2024? What have we standardized? What have we not standardized? What can we automate? How can we better automate and leverage the technology? And then what should we choose to augment? Some of that might be, I'm a big enough MSP. I'm going to go at it alone. I'm going to build the SOC. That's fine, but at least have an explicit answer for every part of that triangle so that you can drive the right profile. Look, I'm fortunate. I speak to hundreds of MSPs monthly, and the best MSPs, their profits are over 30%. And so if you're sitting there listening to this saying, geez, I'm 5%, I'm 10%, I'm struggling to break even, look at your triangle. Take a look at what you're automating, what you can standardize, what you can augment. I promise you, if you just look at it through that prism, you can drive more efficiency, drive better profit, a healthier and happier workforce, and that will get your top line going as well. So I sound somewhat of a broken record because a couple of those verbs I've been saying for a long time. I've added augment because I think it's such a big part of the story now. But I do believe that if the MSP looks at that as a whole triangle, they can drive the business forward.
Okay, no, it's been fantastic to chat to you, John. You've shared some brilliant insights about the report and just more generally what's going on for MSPs and advice. So really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Appreciate the time as well. Look forward to our future talk.